What's going on, guys? Doc Danny here. I want to thank you so much for listening to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. One of the most common questions that I get is, how did you start a practice in a gym? And because of that, I've put together a course called the Gym PT Blueprint, which shows you exactly how to start, run, and grow a successful practice in a gym. If you're a new PT, if you're a new grad, if you're a PT that's just started a practice in the gym, you're not making more than $12,000 a month yet, this course is perfect for you. It'll teach you how to set it up correctly. It'll teach you how to market yourself correctly, how to sell correctly, how to actually build a true business and not just a little side business that maybe doesn't take you anywhere and change you and your family's life long term. So if you're interested in this model of a practice, guys, head to drdannymate.com/products and you can take a look at the Gym PT Blueprint and everything that goes into it at that location. Thanks so much for listening.
So here's the question. How do physical therapists like us, who don't want to see 30 patients a day, who don't want to work home health, and have real student loans, create a career and life for ourselves that we've always dreamed about? This is the question, and this podcast is the answer. My name's Danny Mattei, and welcome to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. What's up, guys? Doc Danny here with the PT Entrepreneur Podcast, and I am extremely excited about this podcast episode because I have finally talked my wife into jumping on the podcast with me. Ashley Mattei, how are you tonight?
I'm okay.
Are you? Are you excited about this?
No.
You're not as excited as me?
No. I'm a behind the scenes kind of person.
Well, you need to speak up a little bit because we only have one mic and it's between both of us.
I'm a behind the scenes kind of person.
There you go. So here's the deal. There's a couple things that we want to talk about, and I've been wanting to get Ashley on the podcast for a while. I tried to get her on the Doc and Jock podcast for years, and
that's a lie.
It's not a lie. We want to talk about post pregnancy training, and we'll get to that point eventually. But for now, we want to talk about business. We want to talk about our business, and we work together. So it's an interesting relationship when your business partner is also the person you're married to. Would you agree?
Sure.
You're going to need to have longer answers than one-word answers if this is going to work.
You have to have a pretty locked down marriage before you go into business together.
Well, I locked you down years ago.
You're thinking of, hey, maybe we should get a divorce. The last thing we want to do to try to save our marriage is start a business. It's guaranteed to end in divorce.
So you're saying if your relationship is built on a house of lies, yeah, that a business will expose it all?
Yes.
Well, what do you think are the challenges of working with your spouse?
I would say for most business owners, it probably never stops. You never stop thinking about the business. It just goes on and on and on. And so then when your spouse is your business partner, it's hard to turn that off. So for us, we cook dinner every night and then we put the kids to bed and then usually we knock out some more work. So it's hard to turn that off. And that's one of the biggest issues that I see. So if you can't do that sometimes, then you're not going to connect. You're only going to become Danny, my business partner, not Danny, my husband.
Well, that sounds sad.
Well, yes, I'm not saying that's where we are. I'm saying you asked what's hard about being a business owner.
I agree. And I feel like it's an easy thing to bring up talking about the business when you shouldn't be talking about the business. Like having those set parameters of like, don't bring up work.
Yes.
This is not the time or the place. And that can be really challenging when you say, okay, well, let's go grab lunch. And, all right, we're talking about the kids. And the next thing you know, we're bringing up some problem that we have at work. It can be really hard to not kind of turn that off and, have a set barrier as to like when you're supposed to talk about this stuff, when you're not. So what have you noticed in terms of working with me in particular and being married to an entrepreneur? What are the challenges associated with that?
Where do I start?
Just lay it all out. This is going to be so good.
No.
I want to hear it, just like make me feel really small.
No. It's mostly a joy to be married to you, Danny.
Well, that's what I was looking for.
No, you know how I feel about you, and I think that you're one of the smartest people in the world, and it's fun to be able to work with you. It can be really frustrating at times because you have these great big ideas, and then you're like, oh, hey, by the way, implement that shit. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Or, yeah, that's going to happen, but I don't really want to. Or, yeah, cool, let's do that together. So you just have to figure out how to work with the different parts. I feel like Danny and I are lucky because, what is it? You're the...
visionary and integrator.
Yes, you're the visionary and I'm the integrator. So Danny has the great big ideas and I'm the one that can implement them. If you had a business where both of you had, or if you had a business partner and both of you were integrators or both of you were what's the other one? I keep forgetting. Visionary.
It sounds cooler than it is. It's really not.
Yeah, but if you had somebody that you both just had great ideas, but you didn't know how to start a business or you didn't know how to run a business or to invoice people, then that's great. That great idea is not going to do anything for you. So I feel like we're pretty lucky that we naturally fell into these roles together, and so we can accomplish a lot. I honestly forgot what your original question was. I
kind of did too. I just got caught staring at you. You're just so beautiful. It's amazing. Oh, people can't see this, but this is some sort of weird form of like foreplay, I think. It's really odd. And that's just even more
going to need you to edit that out.
That's not getting edited out. Now, here's the deal. We've been married for 10 years. We got a super solid relationship, 2 little kids. And I don't think there's anybody that I would want to work with in the capacity that you and I work with than you. And it's because you offset my weaknesses really, really well. And I think this doesn't have to be your spouse necessarily, but I've been asked by quite a few people at this point. I'm thinking about my wife coming on and working with me, and my response is always, well, what do you enjoy doing? What's your skill set? What does she enjoy doing? And what's her skill set? If there were 2 integrators, nothing would ever happen because they would just be nothing but, well, we're going to plan, and well, we need a backup plan, and well, we haven't planned this out, and we got to figure this out, and so they spent all this time on the subtle details of things, and that's great, but they never actually accomplish anything. Now, if it was 2 visionaries that decided to partner up together, all they would do is sit in a room and whiteboard shit with each other and just get super excited about this awesome idea they have. And then they would get discouraged a week later when they decided they wanted to move on to this other idea. So if you don't have that match, the correct match of offsetting your skill set, it's a terrible idea to get involved with your spouse because it's going to cause a lot of stress. So what would you define your roles are primarily within Athletes Potential? Because this is probably something where we can start looking at, if you have this relationship, what should you guys really be doing?
So my job is to manage schedules, and I take care of all of the back end stuff. I work with a bookkeeper and a CPA for all of the financials, the day-to-day finances I manage. Ordering supplies, basically everything that keeps Athletes Potential up and running, website, our booking software, all of that good stuff. And then I have Claire, our office manager, that helps me with our social media, and she doesn't help me, she does it all. So I kind of, as much as I can be behind the scenes, I prefer it. I only was recently in our very first Athletes Potential YouTube video, and I think we only did 5 outtakes before I could stop laughing. It's just not my thing.
Well, you have a problem. When you start laughing,
I can't stop.
You can't stop. So hopefully that doesn't happen on this podcast because it's going really well. I'm thinking we should probably start a 3rd podcast.
Yeah, no.
With you and me, and we could just do this every couple days.
Sounds terrible.
Okay, maybe not. But here's the deal. The roles are something that I want nothing to do with any of that stuff. I'm bad at it. I mess the schedule up all the time. I'm actually not really allowed to schedule things.
No, he's not.
People email me and they ask about scheduling a time to jump on a call or something like that. And I feel like kind of a douchebag being like, well, you got to go through this route, right? But it's because I'm just bad and I overlap meetings and I'll mess it up. It's not my strong suit. So, being able to actually have somebody that loves being organized and is like detail oriented is so important. And here's the other thing that happened. As soon as you came on, our business went from me in an office by myself, seeing people, and we'd got to a point where, we're seeing 100 to 120 patient visits a month probably before you came on.
Yeah, I don't know, but you were extremely unorganized. I know that much.
Oh, terribly unorganized.
At that point in my life, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I just couldn't take it. It was more stressful for me to see how unorganized he was than it was for me to not have him around because he was busy starting a business. So it was very natural for me to want to get in there and organize everything and be the boss of him at work and at home.
Yeah.
It worked out so well for me.
I've just submitted. I've just rolled over like an old dog and submitted in every way possible.
Like Danny was saying, he is not very organized and he hates doing paperwork. And when you start a business, there's all kinds of paperwork. You got to make sure you get your tax ID. You can file as an LLC or an S Corp, and you have to take time and you have to do all of this and you have to research it, making sure you're HIPAA compliant. And Danny doesn't care to do any of that. So you got to make sure that you have somebody, whether it's your spouse or whoever, that can really get in there, figure out what laws you have to be compliant with in your state. So that stuff is very important, and it's not the pretty stuff. It's not all of the fun physical therapy or podcasting bullshit, but it is the stuff that makes a business run.
God, you're making it sound like what I do is so negligible. It's, it really is, it's important to have organization within your business for a couple reasons. And here's why. Like, when I was starting Athletes Potential, it was really something that grew faster than we expected. And a lot of it just had to do with the fact that we were teaching a lot. So we're getting in front of a lot of people. And a lot of that had to do with me trying to just kind of improve my public speaking skill set because I was teaching for Mobility Watch. So I would teach a lot locally to kind of work on some of that stuff. And out of that, we would just start to get patients that would come and see us. So, and then word of mouth, happens and people are telling their friends and family. And we just got busy a lot faster than we expected. So when you look at your business, when it goes through these different phases of growth, you have to look at what areas, if you were to double or triple your business overnight, what areas in your business would break? What systems would break? And for me, it was a lot of systems that were really important, like documenting things that I was doing on a regular basis in terms of what we would want somebody else to do and having a system in place to then teach a second provider to be able to do that. And I wasn't doing any of that stuff. I wasn't organizing things. I was kind of doing my own thing, and I was the only one that knew the system. And by being able to bring Ashley in,
that was frustrating.
I was totally frustrating. It was frustrating for me to work in that because I couldn't get anybody to help me. So what you end up doing is you don't have a business, you have a job, and you work for a crazy person because you work for yourself. And you'll just
you should go read Danny's blog on Athletes Potential about getting proper blood tests run to figure out how terrible your insides are and your hormone levels. And Danny was overworked, wasn't sleeping well. It was a terrible situation for him to have put himself in, but luckily he married me.
Oh, you saved my life. There's no doubt. Yeah. Well, a lot of this also had to do with the fact that first year I was traveling, I think I traveled 26 out of the 52 weekends I was gone.
Danny got out of the military, started teaching for Mobility Watch, was traveling that much, started a business, and we moved to Atlanta. And oh, by the way, we had a 1.5-year-old, 2-year-old, what was he? 2.
Maggie was 6 months.
And Maggie was 6 months. So we had a lot going on. So, like I said, if your marriage isn't up to task, then don't start a business together, because all of that alone would have, destroyed a good marriage. So, well,
I mean, I think we have a really good marriage, and even us, it's not all, roses with as you go through these stressful growth cycles, a move and starting a business, and, it's stressful and it can impact your family life as well. So being able to understand how to organize that correctly, it can be in some cases, you almost have to learn the hard way a little bit to really figure out if it's the right fit for you to do so. But I could tell you, probably the most important thing that's happened with us is the ability to organize and grow our business to the point where we can now have a lot more flexibility over our schedule. And, it's something that many people do not have, where we don't have to be in the office to have a successful business. Honestly, I feel like we could move wherever we wanted to, and our employees are so freaking squared away and awesome that they would run the business just as well as we could. Don't you think?
Yeah, definitely.
And, and that means we can go to the gym in the middle of the day. We can go pick our kids up at the time that we need to. We don't have to put them in aftercare for 4 hours or whatever it is. We get to drop our kids off. We can make a lot of decisions based around spending time with our family. And yeah, sometimes you have to work kind of odd hours and you do a podcast with your spouse at 8:00 at night.
I was about to say, yeah, you put your kids to bed and then you start working again. So,
well, not always. I mean, I feel like early on definitely did more of that. But now to be able to share that with the person you're spending most of your time with is pretty awesome. It's really cool. I would definitely recommend, like I said, taking a look at your skill sets. There's a test you can do called the Kolbe test. KOLBE is what it's called, and it ranks you in terms of tasks that you enjoy. There's 4 buckets, and there's no there's no pass or fail on this. It basically just tells you what your interests are in, and the goal is that you should find somebody that has the opposite skill set to you, the opposite
something that complements.
Yes, it's just you want somebody that enjoys doing the things that you don't. Because some people, like Ashley, love organization, and they like, neatness in the books, and they like systems.
In the books, what are you, in the mafia?
In the books, I'm cooking the books, and they like systemized, SOPs. They live off standard operating procedures. Other people are not, and the test is really interesting because when we got our scores back, we took this test. We were exactly opposite, like totally opposite. Which I could have probably guessed that.
Yeah.
But and here's the other thing. It's not just like Ashley came into this and just, just figured all this stuff out. I mean, she also has a background in running nonprofits, and having to, you have a master's degree. You're just like undervaluing yourself. And so there was already some amount of...
Then I want a pay raise.
You want a pay raise? Jeez, you got to take that up with yourself. So the reality is maybe your spouse is a different skill set than that, but, it could be a cool opportunity. One of our favorite couples in the world are the Starretts. I think that they are one of the best couples to model after if you are thinking about working with your spouse.
Hashtag goals.
Hashtag goals, man. They're so awesome. And they just are like, we're going to be like the Starretts one day. One day. I don't know if we'll ever be as cool as them, but
never.
But they just, and they prioritize their family. And I think that's the other thing it comes down to as well is if you have the opportunity and you feel like you guys would work well together, I would do it because, you get to make... It's fun. It is fun.
It can be super stressful, but we know what the other one's going through because we're doing it together. It's rewarding, and the flexibility is really big. And we haven't always had this flexibility. Danny's busted his ass getting all over Atlanta and traveling all over the country. So you have to get to those points, and you have to understand that, especially when you start out, that's going to be the hardest time of your life. But once you get past all of that point with, your end goal is whatever it is that you've set for yourself and your family, or if you don't have a family, whatever it is that you've set for yourself. We know that we want flexibility in our life to be able to travel with our kids and to go to Costco in the middle of the day and then come home and wrap Christmas gifts. That is nice.
That happened today. For you, and my day was I woke up, went to the gym, came back. You went and took the kids to school, and I worked on a little project at home. Went up. We had a meeting middle of the day. Grabbed some lunch together, and then you left to go to Costco. I worked on a little bit of other stuff and spent some time with our office manager. And then I went and picked up our daughter at like 2:45, and we were back by around 3, and we got to hang out with her. And I mean, and that gives us some flexibility over the day. Early on, it wasn't like that. It was a lot of long hours, and I don't know if anybody can start a business and not expect to put a lot of time in on the front end. And I mean, maybe it exists, but I don't think it exists in physical therapy.
No.
So, keep that in mind. The first year is definitely tough, and you have to understand that going in. And if you can have that communication with your spouse, that they know, like, hey, I'm going to be working a lot.
Whether you go into business with them or not, if you can communicate that to them, especially if you've got young kids at home or kids in general, you've got to be able to communicate that, hey, this is going to be a tough year. I know you're not going to be seeing the daily ins and outs of what's going on, but this is our goal. This is why I started this, or we started this, and go from there. And just know that everything can be super stressful day to day, but just keep that goal in mind.
The other thing that I would say is make sure that being upfront and transparent with your spouse is something that you do, but also I think it's important for them to understand as you build a business, it's stressful, and there are certain times when you just need a break, and your spouse will need a break too, especially if you have kids like we did. So like just understanding how to, you should understand how to like read the body language of your spouse and their, where they're at emotionally, if they're super stressed out or whatever it is, like that's big. And you got to just be able to communicate that with each other. And if you can't, then you're in trouble. I mean, you're probably in trouble to begin with if you can't do that.
And another thing I'll say real quick is it's good. This is more if you are in a business relationship or you're in a business relationship with your spouse, especially, is take time every 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, check in, make sure, like we take time. We usually go to our favorite coffee shop or one of our 2 favorite coffee shops. We sit down. All right, where are we? What are we looking at? What's our big picture? What are we working towards? Do we want to change something? But that's just good, like management of a business anyways, but it really helps when it's your spouse. You can take that time, sit down and kind of map out how your business is going, because if you're both not on the same page, which can happen really easily and has happened with us, it messes things up. So you just have to make sure you have those resets every couple of months. One of my favorite things to use is the Traction website. Well, there's a book called Traction, but then there's also an app called Traction with an X. But anyways, I use that to map out our long-term plan so we can go back to that and see, are we on task for what we want to do in the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever. So those really help. Doing little things like that, like, hey, I feel overwhelmed right now. Let's sit down together and figure this out, versus just trying to figure things out on your own and your spouse is over across the couch while Game of Thrones is playing in the background, feeling overwhelmed, trying to figure something out. Just come together and always talk it through.
Well, Game of Thrones is always playing at our house. Yeah. Like 24/7.
Yeah, our kids love it.
Love it. They love the Lannisters. No, here's a question I have for you, and this is probably be helpful for a lot of people that were in the same position I was, where, okay, let's say you have a single man practice or single female practice, whatever, single person practice. Let's not make it male, female. Single person practice, and you're getting to the point where you're busy, and you need to start to organize this better to scale and grow. What's one of the, like, 1 or 2 things that person could do to really set themselves up to be able to grow from there and be able to hire on more people?
So I would suggest taking a week and writing down every task that you do and putting it in a Google Doc and then putting it into like a shared drive so it's somewhat organized. You can also film it using a software like Camtasia. That's Camtasia. So if you're posting a blog, like, hey, this is how I post a blog, and walk through the steps to where it records you on your computer, walking the person through those steps. Because let's say something happens to you or to whoever, like somebody's got to come in and fill that role probably. So you want to have all of that stuff in place. For me, I created our standard operating procedure book just based off of a little bit what Danny does, but mostly the back end stuff, the office manager more type role. And I just documented everything. You just write it down, get it on paper, and then you can always train people. But if you don't have it written down, then you don't really know what you're doing. You'll just say, oh, I'll get to it. But I would start off taking that week, write down everything, put it in a Google Doc, and then you have it. You can always go back and adjust it, and that's a lot easier to do versus having nothing.
I think it's asking a lot too to take a week when you're kind of in the weeds, seeing all the patients, trying to schedule all the patients, trying to get patients in the door, and it sounds like a lot. But taking that time to...
And it doesn't have to be crazy detailed. Just, on Mondays, I, file all my receipts. On Tuesdays, I put a blog on our website. Just write down those little tasks, and then you can build on them gradually. But it helps if you see it all on paper, like, oh, shit, I feel like I'm all over the place, but I actually have a little bit of a process and an organization going on. So... I feel like most people probably have a little bit organization to their life. They just don't know how to put it down onto something, whether that's paper, Camtasia, whatever.
So it's replicated. And
yes.
The Camtasia stuff, or you can use Zoom for this as well, where you basically do screen flow videos of tasks that you're doing. So anything you're repeating, consistently, whether that be, this is how we post a blog, this is how you edit a YouTube video and upload it, this is how you schedule somebody, anything that you're doing repeatedly that you could get somebody else to do, those are the tasks that she's talking about. So being able to write those out and being able to then
because
record
ideally, you start a business and you hopefully will grow and expand. So you have somebody. So for me, it was our office manager, Claire. So I gave her that SOP. I trained her. She has it all there for reference. She can go back to it. With Danny, it was our other PTs. So all of that stuff is very, very helpful. Yeah,
definitely. And as you scale, like this could become so important, especially if somebody leaves. If you have an employee that has to, move on to a different job or something, you have all your training procedures in place. So the transition is a lot smoother.
Yes.
And as you scale and maybe you open a second location or, whatever you decide that you want to do, whatever point you get to in your business, that's going to be kind of the cornerstone of the back end systems that you have. And it's probably going to be something you're going to have to continually update as well. And it doesn't sound like, to me, this stuff sounds super boring, right? Like I'm just sort of like...
I'm ready to go type up a new SOP book right now.
I know you're so into SOPs, and to me, I'm just like, oh god, I hate SOPs. It's so boring. But the thing is, if it wasn't for that, you're not going to be able to scale to more than just you. It's just, and if you do, that person is going to be extremely unhappy working with you because there's going to be no organization, there's no structure, and they're going to feel like they're working for a crazy person, which they probably are. And I was told one time by a mentor, if it's just you don't have a business, you just have a job. And you can't sell a job. You cannot sell your single man clinic to somebody else. It's not going to work. It's not worth anything. If you have employees and you can take yourself out of the business and that business still runs and is profitable, that's something that is valuable. That's something that is potentially sellable to an investor, another practitioner, whatever it is. And you got to understand, if you're going to start a business, there's no reason to start a business unless you feel like you can create something that is valuable long term.
Yes.
But it's a lot of work. All right, so what's the thing you're most excited about with our company going forward in the next few years?
I just enjoy the fact that we've been able to employ 3 really awesome people so far. Mm-hmm. In 3 years. It's like one person a year, basically.
Yeah.
So that part's really exciting, getting to see them grow and watching them. I mean, I don't know. I'm bad at this.
You're not bad.
Podcasting.
You're doing just fine. This is great. Yeah, no, I'm excited to see. I really would say I agree in terms of.
I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I really like, this is more personal level, but our kids love that we have a business.
That's
and
true.
Watching them understand it a little bit more and talking about athletes' potential. Yeah. And my dad is a physical therapist. That's really sweet. I really like that part. So I'm excited to see them comprehend that more as they get older.
I'm excited for them to get a little bit older so I can have them start cleaning the office and putting
those tiny little hands to work.
Manual labor tasks so that they don't become entitled little jackasses. And
we don't need any more Trumps.
yeah, well, they definitely want our kids to understand, that we have a business and that we employ people. I think that's really cool that we do that and that we've been able to do that. That is the most rewarding thing that I would say we've been able to accomplish, is to create jobs for people that are jobs that they really, really enjoy. And
You better.
I mean, trust me, it's where what we have in terms of the work hours, the ability to work with people one-on-one, highly motivated patients that you're not worried about what insurance is going to pay for or not pay for. It is such a luxury to be able to work with people in that capacity in their current healthcare system. And if you've never worked in a clinic where you saw a large volume and multiple people at one time, it's hard to have perspective on what this one-on-one model is like for you as a practitioner. It's fun. It's awesome. And we've been able to create a position for them that not a lot of PTs are going to be able to find, and for them to really enjoy their job and then grow within that and become really good practitioners. And that's huge. The other thing with business is the ability to donate money to different groups has also been something that I thought has been great. Like, just different groups that we have been able to support and be able to do that through our business is amazing. So it's not just all about revenue, but it's also about, who can we help as well in the process. And that's really cool. So we hope to continue to do that and continue to grow, because the more revenue you generate, the more impact you can have, period. It's not about how much money you take home. I mean, I'll tell you straight, frankly.
Go ahead.
Look, we haven't given ourselves a pay raise until last week.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I've been scraping off the top for a while.
Oh, you've just been laundering money.
I'm about to peace out.
No, it's the reality is, like, as you open a business, if you just pay yourself everything you make, you're gonna just ruin your business.
You're gonna ruin your business, and you're probably not in it for the right reasons to begin with.
Yeah.
And you should really reevaluate what your objective is in life.
Wow, that's harsh. Like, what's your objective in life?
Well, if you just go into business, okay. So I feel like Athlete's Potential is successful because whether it's Claire or myself talking to somebody on the phone, we can convey to them why Athlete's Potential is the place for them. When they receive that appointment confirmation, and then they come to their appointment, they work with Danny, they work with Jackie, or they work with Jacob, and they're with them for that full hour. We are listening to their problems. We help them with their pain, but then we also help them with their management of it. I'm like losing my train of thought.
What do you mean management of their
of their pain, avoiding injury, continue to avoid injuries. That's just not what they get at a lot of places. Yeah. And so if you think of a typical place, oh, your hip hurts. Okay, here, I'll fix it. But then, oh, well, you just told me to stop doing what I love or whatever. So I feel like Athlete's Potential is successful because people see that we genuinely care. If you go into business to just make a lot of money, you don't really give a shit about that person. So they're going to see that. And then ultimately your business isn't going to grow. So what was the point of being a greedy little jerk?
Yeah, there's probably a lot better ways to make money too than a cash-based physical therapy practice.
Yeah, that's
I mean, you could get into some multi-level marketing program and pyramid scheme, all your friends, and probably. Oh,
that's our place.
What's that? And probably probably do a lot better, or go trade stocks or something like that. In the I don't know, and make more money. But if you're in it for the right reasons, it makes the work more enjoyable. It makes what you're doing have meaning, and that's really what's important long term. So,
and that's what people are going to notice.
Yeah, it comes off, and it's very apparent, and the way that you treat people, long term decisions is really important as well. So we think that's one thing that's your culture, right? So we've spent a good bit of time looking at what do we want our culture to be like, how do we want to empower our employees to be able to make decisions without us having to micromanage them, and knowing that they're going to make a decision that's based on our core values allows us to take that step back and know that they're going to do the right thing. So culture, your standard operating procedures, these are all things that relate to a business developing.
What's the
Zappos
book is fantastic for culture and setting up a proper work environment. Might be a little bit too fun loving, but it pays off for them. And we feel like that is a really good representation of what we want athletes' potential to be like. And our employees know, like, hey, we can have fun. And Danny made a latte for Claire today, and that was really awesome. But they also know, oh, I have shit to do, and I need to get that done as well. So I don't know. Read the Zappos book.
Yeah, that's good. Delivering happiness.
Yeah.
So,
That's it.
all right, you guys finally got what you wanted.
Thank God.
I finally got you on the podcast. I'm so excited for this. I can't wait to just put so much Facebook ad spend behind this so that everybody on the planet gets to hear you and I discuss our business, our relationship within the business, outside of the business, and what you should be looking at if you're thinking about working with your spouse, because it can work really well. You hear horror stories of like, I'll never work with your family. And, well,
we had
depends.
a family member tell us that it would not end well. And you know what?
Guess what? You're fucking wrong. I love proving people wrong. Nothing I like more than doing that. So
deep down, we're miserable, but we're just going to prove that person.
Yeah, deep down, we're just so stubborn. We're just going to keep going until the end because we don't want them to have the satisfaction of thinking they were right.
And you guys will never hear from me again.
Potentially, you'll hear from her on a semi-regular basis. We should get you on.
We should get you and Butters on here together.
Your cat is annoying the hell out of me right now. She's meowing at the door like a little turd and ruining our podcast chemistry. And then she knows it. I know she knows it. So, no, here's the deal. I think we should get you back on to talk about
I'm busy.
Most important standard operating procedures within the business. We can talk about top 10. And if you would like to hear that,
I'll Slack it to you and you can read it out loud.
Here's the deal. If you would like that, I would love to get your feedback so that I can send these emails to Ashley. I'll forward them to her. In fact, you can email her. It's ashley@athletespotential.com. Email her and say, hey, I would love to get you back on the podcast so you can talk about standard operating procedures necessary in a successful business to grow past one physical therapist.
New phone. Who dis?
That's it. Yeah, that's it. All right, cool. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with me. You are a pleasure to talk to, and I am so lucky that you decided to grace me with your podcasting presence tonight.
You're welcome.
Do you have any parting words for everybody?
Yeah, I'm going to go catch up on my shows.
Go catch up on your shows?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to hit end on this sucker. Guys, thanks so much for listening to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. If you like what you heard, I would 100% appreciate it if you'd head over to iTunes, leave a review, subscribe to the podcast. This is something that we do every Tuesday and Thursday. We have podcast releases, nothing but good information, actionable stuff for you guys. So if you like it, hit subscribe, leave us a rating, 5-star reviews. If it's a 1-star review, just keep that shit to yourself. And, it helps us support the podcast and push it forward. So guys, thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.